Hello, everyone. I'm Christopher Holmes. I'm senior programmer for the RiverRun Film Festival, and I'm happy to welcome you all to this digital virtual Q&A for the film The Restoration. And I'm really thrilled to be joined this afternoon by the director of the film, who's here with us from Los Angeles, beaming in. So welcome, Alonso Llosa,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. Thank
writer
you.
and director.
Right on director. Yeah.
Writer and director of the film. So thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
I was just rewatching the ending right before you jumped on this Zoom call because one of the things I really love about it, first of all, it ends with like this slightly unexpected but just a beautiful kind of poetic moment there with and I wrote the line down so I could remember it. But Tato says something like it's unclear whether these buildings were ruins or works in progress, but for that brief period they were both, which I think is really beautiful, and it kind of calls to mind you know Italo Calvino or Borges or someone like that. And I
Well,
think the poetry kind of sneaks in throughout it. So maybe if you could talk about that line as its jumping off point. Was that some Did you write that line first, or did that just kind of come to you in the process? Or
that line was actually there from one of the earlier drafts of the script, and so it stayed there through through the many drafts and through the editing. So it was one of those moments that I felt kind of like wrapped the movie together. So the movie is kind of wild at times and absurd and like silly, very self-consciously silly, and like I feel like that moment is sort of when all of that silliness, all that absurd, mayhem we've seen throughout kind of just is encapsulated.
yeah, it reminds you that the film, has a heartbeat and it has something to say, something important to say about, condition of contemporary Peru and the effects of industrialization and development on, historic properties and places that have history. So I think it's nice to kind of tie it up with a neat little bow like that.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, and I love the references you mentioned, Italo Calvino, Borges, love both. And one of those things that you're not always, I think most times you're not aware of your influences, as you're creating, as you're writing, sometimes it's just like, they're just part of your subconscious catalog, right? Of infinite
Yeah.
influences, but Borges was actually the first writer I get into when I was like around 15. It was kind of like a revelation to me, and I just got started reading everything by him and loved it, blew my mind.
Yeah.
And Calvino too, just kind of a few years ago, while I was writing the script, because it's this ideas of urbanism and architecture has always fascinated me, and he has this book, Invisible Cities,
Right.
uh, that's fascinating, and I was reading that while I was writing the script still, so right on.
It's one of my favorite books. And I think that, yeah, that hearing that at the end just kind of rung a bell for me. And I enjoyed it throughout, but I knew I was going to invite it at that moment. It's just a really
Cool.
impressive finale, I thought.
Cool, thanks, man.
Um, so I guess in terms of where were you, what were the kind of seeds of this project, and why was this the story that you felt like you wanted to tell at this particular moment in your artistic development?
Well, it's my first feature. I've made a no budget feature that I made with my friends. That's kind of like buried, but this is my proper first feature, and the idea came. I was living in the U.S. and I would go back to Peru to visit friends and family, and I would see the changes that would happen in Peru because I would go once a year, for example, and then suddenly there's a lot more buildings in the out of my window, my old bedroom window, which was inside my grandparents' house, and I would go and see these like changes in the landscape that would occur, and then that was kind of striking because I think people in it were just kind of taking it maybe for granted. They were just, like when you look at yourself in the mirror, you don't realize how you're aging, but then someone else sees you. Oh man, you've aged.
Yeah.
So it was kind of the same thing with the city, and I was kind of like living outside abroad, so those changes were very apparent. And at the same time, there was a close person to me that was going through a divorce, depression, addiction, and that I was able to see that contrast, and that was the seed of it. There's this development, there's this search in prosperity and like for a new middle class that was new in Peru at the time. Sort of the possibilities of a new middle class with material sort of with sex that was able to acquire things like properties or material things, and there's this other person that was kind of like in a hole, right? So that contrast to me was sort of the seed of the story.
Gotcha. And whereabouts in Peru did you grow up, and it's a film set?
Lima.
Lima. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Is that explicitly mentioned in the film, or is it left kind of ambiguous?
No, it is mentioned. I mean, it is an imagined version of Lima. It is not. I don't really. I don't love naturalism. I think like we have reality around us, and that's it. So when in movies, I think it's the license to make a place something else, like the way we see a place or the ways we feel a place. I think it's something that I've always appreciated in movies or in fiction. So it is Lima, but it is an imagined version of Lima, the Lima that I felt at the time.
Yeah. And it was meant to kind of encapsulate sort of a moment in time in that city, it seems. Is that kind of how it felt the last time you were there when you left after wrapping production, or has it changed since in your?
It changed again because it stalled actually, and what happens at the end of the movie? Something kind of similar happened. Well, with the pandemic, for sure, suddenly everything was like stopped with the pandemic, and that was like not an intentional reference when I was writing the script because this was written a while ago. So. But the pandemic not only caused a stop in the real estate industry, but also in all sort of areas. The health industry just kind of collapsed, and the economy is just a mess right now. So like if things, Peru went through a long period of sort of prosperity, or economic growth, macroeconomic growth. A lot of people didn't see the benefits of that growth, but in terms of numbers, it was like at least 15 years of steady growth, and now it's just like, it's a little bit politically unstable too. In the middle of new elections, last year we had like 3 presidents, just like switching back and forth, and like interim presidents. Like it was a mess. So it's definitely a different landscape right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And what has the film had any kind of screening or release in Peru as yet, or is that still, are you waiting out the pandemic on that front too?
Man, yeah, that's been tough. We were gonna have a commercial release, originally planned for late last year, so that was definitely postponed. Theaters opened briefly at some point late last year, but with like a 15% capacity, but then they closed them again. So we had a release in the Festival of Lima, which happened in August last year. So we've had a festival release, and then it played at Semana del Cine Week, Cinema Week, which is another festival in Lima. So it played at 2 festivals, one in August, one in November. It did very well, thank God. People seem to like the movie. So for as far as the commercial release, we're just waiting to see actually whether we release digitally or have some sort of theatrical release, which would have been ideal. But yeah, it's crazy, but it is what it is. It is what it is. We have to adapt, right?
But meantime, you've screened it at Santa Barbara. Is that where it had, which is a pretty big U.S. festival?
Yeah, for sure. We premiered there actually. That was our world premiere.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Last year. So and then there was a big sort of pause, and then we kind of restarted going to festivals around August. with the Festival of Lima, then Vancouver, then Guadalajara, this year San Diego Latino. Well, now it's going to be RiverRun coming up in Sarasota.
Well, that kind of brings us to another aspect. I mean, it's such a beautifully shot film. It's again with poetry, it's visual poetry. Like you said, it could easily have been just a zany kind of formulaic family comedy, but you took care to. I mean, the cinematography is gorgeous, the set design, everything. The lighting is just all so meticulously done. It's a film that I feel like you want to see it big if you can. So it must be the thought to release it virtually and let people just see it on whatever size screen they have in their homes must be a little bittersweet.
It is bittersweet. I was just thinking about that because, thanks for mentioning the cinematography and the art design because they did an amazing job. Sean Webley doing the camera and lighting, and Renzo Bazan doing the production design. Yeah, they were so dedicated, insanely meticulous, and so I'm glad it shows. I think it does, but it's nice that it's recognized. But in terms of being it appreciated in big screen, yes. Like for example, Guadalajara, we were able to have a hybrid festival there with actual screenings in theaters that were very very low attendance. Obviously, nobody was going, but I was able to see the movie on a big screen since Santa Barbara, so almost a year later, and it does have an effect. It does you do feel the movie differently, any movie. So, but it is this being a film that I've watched thousands of times in the editing process, the fact that I was able to see it in a big screen and feel again, that was like, I think, yeah, there's something about theatrical screenings that for sure, affect audiences. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
What's the and it's so I mean the house itself is such an important character in the story. Is there do you have was it hard to cast the house, I guess? Or
Totally.
how did you come across that location?
Yeah, the endless search, endless search. In my mind, it had been a little different, but we needed to take so many uh, little criteria into consideration when looking for the house, and it took because in the end, the exterior was different from the interior, so we ended up like using different locations for that, and yeah, we ended up casting many houses, auditioning many houses, and then we settled on that one. So, for example, like I don't care about revealing this, but like the architectural style that the house is referred to in the house, and the house doesn't really belong to that architectural style. So there's a little bit of like those leaps in sort of like authenticity, but in the end it's sort of like the idea was that it's formerly aristocratic family that lived in this place, so the house needed to capture an idea rather than sort of historical accuracy. There's something that you needed to feel from watching this house and from inhabiting it. So in the end, I think what the houses we ended up casting did capture that.
And is it a private residence or is it actually belong to a historical society? What's going on with the house now?
The interior, yes, the interior is kind of like a very nice woman that was living there by herself, and a story, maybe a family history not too dissimilar from the one in the movie. The exterior was now used as a gallery, art gallery, and it's now being it was bought by a hotel, so it's gonna become a hotel. So it is a historic property, actually. The exterior,
Gotcha.
exterior is like a sort of it's one of those houses that can't be demolished, so it's protected by the city.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Uh, Another thing I noticed on the last viewing, just looking at the credits as they rolled, I saw Gil Holland's name in there, who's a
Oh.
producer he was based out of Louisville, Kentucky over here that we've known. He's had other films in RiverRun,
Uh,
go way back. How did you and Gil Holland, how did that relationship come about?
Gil was an angel to the project. Gil, huge. He opened so many doors for us. I met Gil through one of my mentors from my master's program, Julia Solomonov, who's a very talented filmmaker from Argentina and who was a professor when I was going to Columbia's directing program. So we were very good friends, and he was involved in her first feature.
Okay.
So she introduced him to us, and from there, like so many doors opened too. So Gil's amazing.
Small world. Yeah, he ended up not being able to help me with the feature of my own that I was doing. He did offer like his music production
Oh
company.
yeah, fun a blast.
Yeah, did you end up using tracks from Gil's company as well?
We did. There's one in the background that we used. Yeah.
It has your film has a beautiful score too, by the way, which
Oh,
is made some surprising choices again in contrast to the film, the subject of the film. I thought it was again very kind of dreamlike and floaty and just pensive.
cool things. Yeah, it's one of the ways instruments that we have to suspend movie, right? To make it exist in this plane that is not so rooted, right? So the cinematography does that, the kind of acting does that, the script does that, but the music is definitely another element that helps suspend the film. And I love it. I'm kind of a frustrated musician myself, so working on the score with the composer was one of the most fun parts of the process.
Well, yeah, I think that the score really softens Tato a bit and gives you some emotional reframing. I don't know.
Right.
He's one of these kind of like a Royal Tenenbaum type of character where he's just at every moment you want to root against him, and he's sort of this SOB that is ultimately he's redeemed in the end, and yeah, he constantly defies you. You keep wanting to write him off, and he keeps just doing just enough. Uh, and yeah, it's a tricky thing that you've pulled off there with that character.
Yeah, he's despicable, but you kind of love him, right?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember the word you used in the synopsis. Not ne'er do well, but what do you call it?
Charismatic, cokehead. I don't know.
It just doesn't matter, but yeah, it's a very distinct, memorable character. So I commend you on that. Were there?
I love that character from the Royal Tenenbaums, the Gene Hackman character. That was definitely.
Is that in there?
I mean, yeah, I think so. Yeah, also like love that movie, and that character always touched me.
Well, what were some of the other films that you were maybe thinking about or looking at as you kind of prepared either the visual style or worked on the writing, just things that were kind of floating around in the ether as you made the film?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a combination. There's one Luchino Visconti movie called The Leopard, based on a book, but the story is about this transition in Italy from this old aristocracy into the new sort of bourgeoisie. So you see this aristocracy that's kind of like losing power and are being forced to adapt, and it's also a metaphor about death. The main character kind of like aging, and sort of that was thematically a reference for sure, because that's one of the main themes in the restoration. The sort of like old aristocracy losing its grasp on power, right? Dying, this old aristocracy literally being misplaced. So the other one was for tone, The Big Lebowski, which I've always loved since it came out. The comedy of it is just right up my alley. And then Ratatouille, I think, Ratatouille. There's something about the tone too and the narrative style that was that combination of sort of serious and artsy and extremely sort of accessible and fast-paced, and if you want to call it commercial, even that combination of tones is also something that I've always been sort of interested in exploring. So, you know, you can have like Visconti on one side, maybe David Lynch on one side, and then Ratatouille on this side, and the Big Lebowski. Sort of like see what happens when you mix them up.
Yeah, I love that. I love that approach. That's cool. Um, another credits related thing. I just your last name struck as I was thinking about other Peruvian films and filmmakers I've been around, and I thought back to I was curious if you had any relation to Claudia, who directed The Milk of Sorrow about 10, 12 years ago. That was nominated for an Academy Award.
Yeah. I think only Peruvian movie to have been nominated for an Academy Award. I'm not related. Maybe I am, but a few degrees away.
Okay.
Yeah, I met her in passing. She seems, you know, super nice and extremely talented. Yeah, we haven't shared Christmas Eve.
Gotcha. But it does seem like there's kind of a burgeoning, I won't exactly call it a new wave maybe, but there's definitely a lot of, we've shown several Peruvian films in recent years here at RiverRun, and there seems to be a rising influence of all South American art, but Peruvian filmmakers for sure. Are there other ones you recommend or that are influences on you?
Peruvian film, yeah, they're definitely. You know what, Peruvian film the industry was so small for so long, so small. So we've been definitely as an industry, or you know, in our output of films, we have been very behind other countries like, well, Argentina, huge tradition of amazing films. Chile's been like delivering amazing films for the past 20 years. So I think Peru's starting to catch up. Like, I think I worked on this movie, Song Without a Name, right before working on the restoration, and that movie premiered at Cannes and won like over 30 awards. A beautiful film, very different from mine. It's black and white, a little slower, and but very intimate, very political. That would recommend that movie 100 times. The Bad Intentions, another movie. I don't know if you've heard of it. That's from a few years ago. Beautiful film.
Yeah,
there's definitely new good movies coming out.
Yeah, and a film we programmed last year and never got to show because the festival was called off. But Lena from Lima, which I think was a co-production, Peruvian and
Right.
Brazilian.
Right, haven't seen it, but yeah, definitely heard about it.
Great, kind of a modern social realist musical. It was a very strange cocktail. Also, it has some things in common with your film too, I would say.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah. I think that we're kind of running up against our time limit here, but it's been a real pleasure talking with you. I guess to wrap up, could you just tell us what's next for you? What projects do you have coming up, and where does the film go from here?
Well, film's going to be after RiverRun. We have 2 South American festivals coming up that we're going to reveal soon. So La Restauración Film on Instagram and Facebook. If anybody wants to follow us, we'll be posting updates.
Yeah, what are your social media tag handles?
La Restauración Film.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm just writing new material very early, having fun in the writing process right now. So something will come out of there, hopefully. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, we definitely wish you the best of luck with this film. We appreciate you sharing it with us, and hopefully once we get past all this pandemic stuff, we get a chance to have you here in Winston-Salem and show you a real river run in style.
I would love that. I would love that. It's a pity that I'm not there now, but we'll definitely make it out there as soon as I can.
Yeah, but for now, this has been great. And thanks once again for taking time out of your day to be with us.
Oh, completely. Anytime. And thank you for giving the movie an opportunity and to show it to North Carolina. It's great.
My pleasure. All right. Take care, Alonso. Thank you.
Chris.